Nandito na naman kami para magbigay sa inyo ng mga panibagong impormasyon at mga usaping napapanahon.
At syempre, kasama pa rin namin kayo upang talakayin ng mga mahalagang diskusyong pangkabataan.
Kaya halina't sabay-sabay na makialam dito lang sa
Schoolmates!
Isigaw ang tinig mo, ihayag sa buong mundo ang karapatan, kalayaan. Buksan ang isip mo, kaalaman ang yaman mo, sa karapatan, sa kalayaan.
Schoolmates, kasama sa pag-unlad ng ating lipunan ang pagdami ng makabagong teknolohiya at pagdami ng gumagamit ito, kaya expected na ang pag-shift natin sa digital era. Marami na ngayon ang umaasa sa social media at iba pang digital platforms para sa pang-araw-araw na pamumuhay.
Kabilang na nga riyan ang pagkalap ng mga balita through online because of accessibility, convenience, and timeliness ng mga balitang lumalabas sa social media. Sa pamamagitan ng ilang pindot lamang sa ating mga gadgets ay updated na tayo sa mga happenings sa ating paligid. Subalit, schoolmates, kapansin-pansin din ang pagsulpot ng mga iba't ibang page at accounts na naglalabas ng samut-saring impormasyon.
At syempre, sa ilang pagkakataon, napatunayan na ang nilalaman ng ibang articles ay walang katotohanan o kaya naman ay misleading, kaya't nauso ang katagang fake news. Kaya naman, schoolmates, para sa episode natin ngayong gabi ay pag-uusapan natin kung paano nga ba malalaman kung ang impormasyong nasasagap natin ay makatotohanan ba or hindi. Ayan.
Ayan, schoolmates. Siyempre, simulan muna natin kung ano yung madalas nating naririnig na terms kapag na-associate sa salitang fake
Fake
news.
news.
So, simulan natin. Nandiyan ang misinformation, disinformation, at malinformation. Dahil tatlo tayo, tig-iisa tayo dyan, di ba?
Okay. Anong misinformation?
Sige, schoolmates, ang misinformation ay isang type of false information that is presented bilang katotohanan, bilang factual. Ayan, totoo.
Okay.
Pero yung tao na nagkakalat nito ay akala niya totoo yung sinasabi niya pero hindi naman pala.
So, I guess, ang point din talaga natin, yung difference ng mal, dis, at yung misinformation na na-use interchangeably is how the person who disseminates the information perceive the information to be. Diba?
Yes.
So parang kung ikaw, tayo, or tayo mga schoolmates, tayo ay tayo yung nasa nagsasalita or nagsishare ng information, kung ano yung pinaniniwalaan nating totoo, might differentiate it from a mis or disinformation. Kasi naman, guys, ito, disinformation, ako na, totoka na ako dito. Yung disinformation na sinasabi naman natin, guys, is false information talaga. Pero, pinepresent mo as truth, knowing fully well na ito ay mali. Or kumbaga, may intent tayo na mag-deceive or sabihin na ito ay pawang katotohanan na alam naman natin ay lie. So, there's deception, no? Or intentional itong ginagawang disinformation.
Okay.
Ngayon, ano naman ba ang malinformation?
So,
Ayan.
yung meaning, schoolmates, ang misinformation, unintentionally disseminated.
Correct.
Wala sa intention, di ba? Kumbaga, nagpakalat ka ng...
Biktima rin yung, yung person
Yung
na
nagsasabi.
Pero yung
disseminate.
disinformation, orchestrated, intended,
Planado.
talagang nandun ang intention. At madalas stress dyan ang gagaling ang mga political propaganda. No?
Pwede.
Sa disinformation. Ngayon,
Pwede.
yung pangatlo, yung malinformation. Ito naman yung information-based sa katotohanan, sa truths that are purposefully used to inflict harm to a person, organization, or country. So, dito, halimbawa, may nangyari dito sa ating sa studio, no? Kunwari lang to, schoolmates, meron daw earthquake drill.
Okay.
Nagkaroon ng earthquake
sige.
drill. Okay,
Okay.
drill. Tapos, edi tayo, drop, shake, ano yun?
Duck over
Duck over and hold, diba? So, pero, ang pinakalat ni Gina, Trisha, magkakaroon ng napakalakas na lindol ngayon sa Visayas Avenue. Pero ang nagkaroon lang, dahil nga nagkaroon tayo ng earthquake drill, kumbaga, ine-exaggerate yung mga pieces of truth, no?
maaari,
Na pwedeng
yes.
mag-cause ng like what you've mentioned, mass hysteria,
Yes.
diba, ng panic, at marami pang iba.
Siguro, there is blurry lines din, no, Gab and Gina, on how and malinformation naman is being interchanged. Kasi schoolmates, ang natin dito, yung dalawang tinitignan natin, yung intent at saka yung motive ng tao sa pagsasabi nitong mga news na ito, no? So, yung malinformation, yung intent niya para i-disseminate ito ay i-deface or talagang sirain yung imahe ng isang person, country, or organization. So, meron tayong tatlong tinitignan doon, guys. It's always what is the intent, what is the motive, at ano yung pinerperceive ng taong nagdi-disseminate ito? Alam niya ba or hindi? Gaya na sabi ni Gab na orchestrated ba or unintentional? So, syempre guys, no, sobrang apektado tayo ngayon yan,
Exactly.
especially in the news industry. Kasi maraming kumakalat na mixes ng this
This
at
and
malinformation. So, it also affects negatively how people perceive the news industry to be. Tayo, no, dito sa schoolmates,
Exactly.
paano nga ba tayo tinitignan ng ating mga schoolmates ngayon? Tayo ba
Tama ba yung
Oo,
sinasabi
tama nga
natin?
ba yung sinasabi natin? Tama nga ba yung alam nating sinasabi natin? So, maraming maraming pieces of information na kailangan natin ma-put together para ma-build itong narrative na to.
Ayan.
Pero guys, no, lagi natin pinag-uusapan, ano nga ba tong fake news? Ano ba yung maganda na na-define natin yung terms, no? Pero lagi tayong umiikot doon sa point na paano nga ba tayo nag-verify ng information? Paano tayo nag-check ng credibility at source? Pero ngayon guys, no, I think very much excited tayo kasi yung mga magiging guest naman natin mamaya ang mag-share sa atin tong mga to.
Yeah. Oh,
Yan.
actually, sinabi na rin sa sa datos na nilabas nito lang ng Pulse Asia na 8 out of 10 Filipino schoolmates, that's 86%, ay aware na malaking problema itong fake news sa
Correct.
ating bansa. So, sa 72 million na internet at social media users sa ating bansa, ibig sabihin, aware sila na may problema sa fake news. Pero ang tanong na gusto nating sagutin sa ating talakayan ngayong araw ay, educated enough na ba ang mga Pilipino para ma-define yung fine line sa katotohanan, sa facts, at sa mga fabricated content?
Correct.
Are we critical enough to verify the contents that we see online? Okay, pero maya-maya lamang ay sasamahan tayo ng ilang panauhin upang ibahagi ang kanilang opinion and actions against fake news. Pakaabangan yan sa pagbabalik ng
Schoolmates! Nagbabalik ang Schoolmates! Kanina, guys, nasimulan na natin ang ating pag-uusapan tungkol sa pagdami nga ng lumalabas na maling impormasyon sa social media. To talk more about it, syempre, di naman tayo yung mga experts dito. Kaya
Yes,
naman
sir.
naglalagay din tayo ng ating mga guests natin to share with us, no? Makakapanayam natin ngayong gabi si Sir Gab Billones, ang founder at president ng Break the Fake Movement. Ayan, at syempre makikita naman din natin virtually si Sir Pio Silva, isang educator at content creator. Hello po sa inyo and welcome to our studio. Ayan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to invite me here in the program.
Yan. Ayan. And that was Sir Gab Billones. Hi, Sir Pio!
Pio.
Hello po.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Ayan, okay. So, syempre, simulan na natin agad, no? Ito, mainit na usapan to. Lagi natin itong binabanggit, even on social media, at marami nag-aaway tungkol dito, no? Una po sa lahat, ano po ba ang inyong masasabi sa pagdami ng fake news, lalo na daw sa social media? What do you think is the root cause about this problem? Yeah. Simulan natin kay Sir Gab. Yeah.
Sige. Ang issue ng fake news ay hindi bago, no? Nag-stimula to ng mga World War II propaganda warfare pa to. Pero lately lang natin na-experience yung changes na ginagamit din siya as political propaganda, or it can be like to instill social stigma or to instill public fear. So marami ng evolution sa fake news. Dati talagang military warfare tactic lang siya. Dahil dito, mahirap tukuyin yung original root causes kung bakit naging wildfire yung spread ng fake news. And largely it's because madami na ding motives ang mga tao ngayon. Part doon is yung decentralization ng access to media. dati sobrang centralized ng access natin to media, but now the publishing of media itself was democratized. Ngayon, hindi ka na lang consumer
Right.
ng media. You also become media publisher. You become, to a certain extent, publisher ka dahil source of truth ka na din ng mga neighbors mo. So ngayon, dahil sa shift ng ating ng media consumption, media publishing, to a certain extent, we're bearing the brunt of the effects of that evolution, and dito nag-experience tayo ng fake news.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks, Sir Gab. Sir Pio, ikaw naman, meron ka bang masasabi on what is possibly the root cause, or in your words, ano nga ba ang masasabi mo regarding sa pagdami nito ngayon?
Right, I think right now we have become representatives of a different echo chambers that create misinformation and distort perspectives. And before, that was only centralized in only a few of the elite. But then now, we have become ourselves individually. We have been able to defeat the opportunity to even engage with different questioning with other people, because other people have different opinions. We have the power to also disregard it. We have the power to also outright silence them. And so in one way or another, we are affected by groups that we surround ourselves with. And that's what also gives us the engagement to make sure that there are other opinions that we can not propagate, but only ours is right. And that also goes with the fact that there is an existing amount of confirmation bias in our society today, which is isa po itong cognitive bias where we seek out information to prove that what we already know to be true is true.
Right.
And the more that we not only know it ourselves, but we also get to also spread it to different people. And that's what also creates the cycle of fake news and of disinformation.
Yeah, we agree, Sir Pio, no? Pero for Sir Gab, si Sir Gab ay kapangalan ko. Sir,
Yes.
talagang pogi ang mga
Noted.
Gab, Sir.
Oo.
Sir, kayo ang founder ng Break the Fake Movement, di ba? And Trisha, Gina, Schoolmates, napaka-importante ng mga organisasyong kagaya niyan that promotes critical thinking to combat fake news, no? Sir Gab, paano nabuo ang Break the Fake? What was the purpose in forming the organization?
Okay. So originally, it started in 2017, where a group of 10 people, we joined a certain media literacy workshop, and doon namin nalaman yung extent ng Philippine media landscape shift. At saka yung talagang evolution of the democratization of media. Dahil doon sa bago naming awareness, kasi ito yung programa na nilaunch ng CMFR, ng USAID at saka ng US Embassy, doon namin nalaman na hindi tayo pwedeng mag-advocate lang for silence. Kasi kung nakikita mo na merong problema right in front of you and you can be an agent of change, we need to step up and really take on the challenge of informing, educating, and really making sure that we create an environment where democracy is celebrated and we make informed decisions based on truthful facts alone.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, right, no, sir. Very timely to dahil nabanggit nyo nga po na noon pa lamang ay talamak na ang fake
Yeah.
news, at lalo na ngayon sa panahon natin nung nagkaroon ng pandemic na talagang social media lamang po ang pinag-uugatan ng impormasyon ng halos lahat ng majority ng population ng ating mga ka-schoolmates. Ano?
Correct.
Kay Sir Pio naman po tayo. Ano? In relation po sa nabanggit kanina ni Sir Gab na yun nga po yung intention nila kaya nabuo ang kanilang grupo. Kayo po, sir, as a content creator, ano po kaya yung nako-contribute ninyo in order to combat yung spread ng fake news? Paano nyo po nasisigurado na you're stating facts and nagagamit nyo po ito to motivate your audience?
Right. I mean, as a content creator, we have to bear the responsibility and accountability to really figure out that alam naman natin we can't do a 6-second Google search on just what we want to say because we affect hundreds of thousands of people. We affect, if not hundreds, right? And so alam naman natin that as our audience grows, we need to make sure that our content really is relevant to the current issues that they stand for and what is relatable to them, yeah. But also at the same time, we need to make sure that our content does not affect them in some way. In my case, I do a lot of short-form content on TikTok about, spirituality, religion, and we know that for short-form content, for spliced content, it's easy to consume and quick for us to digest and useful siya in a way to learn effectively or efficiently. Pero yung tanong ay, how willing are we to consume the depth of that information? Like, we can have basic knowledge, Pwede tayo maging enthusiast, but we can also learn how to become the experts ourselves, or we seek the experts, because we have to also know that there are times when we just don't know the answer. And if we don't know, then we have to be humble enough to seek other people who can provide us with that information. It's not that we ourselves are the ones who only propagate the info, but we also are the mouthpiece, kumbaga. And we get to also ask other people for help, because we content creators are a community. We don't stand alone from each other, and we are not also just mainly individually working behind the scenes. We need to also come as a group.
Right. Thanks, Sir Pio. So, ito medyo nagfi-fixate ako, guys, dun sa term natin kanina na dis at malinformation, no? So, let's laser focus on that. I want to hear muna siguro kay Sir Pio. Of course, Sir Gab, I'll follow up on the question later, no? Paano nyo, in your case as a content creator, and of course, you as leads of a certain organization, paano nyo nasisigurado na hindi binabaliktad or kumbaga iniiba yung sinasabi ninyo na ginagamit ng iba para kumbaga i-deface kayo or kumbaga mas mag-spread pa ng false information sa mga sinishare ninyo in your various platforms in a rather negative way. So simulan muna natin kay Sir Pio.
Right, that's a good question, Trisha. With regards to how I, in particular, make sure that what I deliver to my audience is not in a way to distort certain perspectives or kumbaga to just turn them to some direction that is flawed or wrong in a way, I always make sure to keep my message simple and in a way there is no growing threat to how I research, or there's no issue in how I perceive it. It's all about what comes out as the good that comes out of it, instead of just focusing on what the fears are. Because when you are able to manipulate and when you are able to give out that fear to people, it creates a trigger in them. And with the way that you give out fear to people, it feeds them something that they can be worried about. And when they are worried about something, it directs them to something or to someone that they think that that is the enemy. And they think that that is the main cause, when it's not even the main cause. So it's a very lengthy process for other, I guess, more educational institutions on how they institute this and how they the institutional active measures that they put for it. But I, as a content creator, it's more of keeping the message. In a way, it's persuasive, but at the same time, it does not give out any fallacy or any flaw to make sure that my audience will also understand what I'm saying totally. A 1-minute video, even if it's just talking about something that I saw in the news or something that's controversial, it's not in any way trying to pull them down. It's more of trying to always uplift up and seeing the real issues that stand by.
Right. Thanks, Sir Pio. Sir Gab, meron bang instance na ganun din yung na-experience yun, and how did you combat?
Yeah, alam mo, uso ngayon ang smart shaming, di ba? Cancel culture. Pero hindi naman namin na-experience yun as NGO workers, development workers. Siguro, you have to be very clear. Just wanna piggyback on what Pio said, no? You have to be very intentional with what you're launching in digital media. So what you can afford to say offline, you should be able to say it online. So vis-a-vis, the same case scenario. Ang akin lang, when you try to launch programs, for example, you have to make sure that you're very tight-knit to your intentions, to your purpose. Kasi kami naman, as coming from the NGO perspective, we're not trying to destabilize anything. It's more of like saying that in an environment where there are facts and there are false news information, where would you rather be, right? Would you rather create decisions based on false information, or would you rather make decisions based on the truth? So, try to compare the two models and see where would you rather be? Where would you rather have your future generations be? So, ganun naman ang sa amin. Just stick to the facts. Try to celebrate the fact that there's diversity of perspectives. It's an online community, and do not try to cancel or to try to intimidate someone's opinion. Kasi regardless of how you think small that idea is, there still is a value why that's why that person is coming from that perspective. Ganon kami always.
Napaka-meaty na agad nung first
Yeah.
part ng discussion natin, no? Pero guys, schoolmates, syempre, puputulin muna natin ang ating talakayan dito. Pero marami pa tayong dapat tutukan when we return here on Schoolmates!
Welcome back to Schoolmates. Trisha, Gina, napakalaman na ng ating unang parte ng talakayan at sa pagpapatuloy ng ating discussion on fake news, kasama pa rin natin syempre sina Sir Gab Brillones at Sir Pio Silva at kanina nga ay nakapagbahagi na sila ng kanilang opinion tungkol sa ating topic, no? So for Sir Gab ulit, no? Sir, balik tayo sa organization, sa Break the Fake Movement. Nabanggit niyo earlier yung mga media literacy programs na ginagawa ng inyong organisasyon. Ano pa ba yung mga programa o proyekto na pwede mo, Sir, i-share sa ating mga manonood na pwede nilang pagkuhanan ng inspirasyon, no? Para labanan ng fake news?
Okay. So number one, unang-una talaga advocacy, no? Katatapos lang ng lecture ko on advocacy sa CCP ngayon. And we were talking about how a lot of people talk about fake news in the context of the macro problem. Kasi this is not an isolated problem in the Philippines. As a matter of fact, developed countries like Singapore or US are actually bearing the brunt of this evolution and consumption of media. So madami tayo nagsasuffer sa massive shifts of changes in the way we consume media. Dito sa atin, we have to really think about how we can contribute to the resolution on a micro level sa community natin mismo. For example, merong announcement sa barangay captain nyo, tapos ikaw hindi mo siya kinokorrect, hindi mo siya fina-fact check. You're not advocating for your community because you stayed silent. You actually have to speak out. If you saw fake news on social media, you have to report it because there's an option on Facebook. That way, you're contributing to the micro efforts in resolving the issue, but on a bigger scale, you can also participate by organizing. And what do you mean by that? You can participate in training, in digital training. You can even volunteer in our programs. We have the ASEAN Digital Literacy Program right now. You can sign up in our socials, but we even have the Media Civics Lab, Fact Checking Academy, particularly dedicated for content creators and influencers. Because I wanna introduced this idea already on the latest Pulse Asia survey, right? Like
Yes.
a lot of the Filipinos think social media creators and influencers were the top sources of fake news.
Right, right.
So that way we created a program that we can turn their influence into social good by incubating them into becoming media literacy champions. So we have a lot of suite of programs that they can sign up for, but if you do not have the advocacy, the desire to create change, you will not be able to find the solution. So it starts within you.
Right.
Thank you so much po, Sir Gab, for sharing with us yung mga activities or yung mga programs na nilo-launch ninyo sa Break the Fake Movement. Kay Sir Pio naman po, ano po kaya ang inyong mga paalala sa inyong viewers regarding sa pag-share ng mga information na nakuha nila mula sa inyong platform?
Yes. For that, I think with the shareability of information that we have right now, right? I agree with what Sir Gab said kanina about this bottom-up advocacy that even I have to also contribute because I am young, you know, I have a lot to learn also. And I need to know also how to, you know, construct certain narratives that will be able to also contribute to the active steps to help encourage and address this in accordance to, let's say, even the educational crisis that we have right now in terms of the quality concern at all levels. And with regards to my audience, to engage them in critical thinking skills because we Filipinos are handed down the tools to discuss and talk about the facts in dialogue, in a certain dialogue. And we need to know that in that depth, we need that understanding because it goes beyond just personalizing content, beyond the social groups that maybe the portions of my audience are also yearning to have, or having the courage to also know that they can be wrong and also be eager enough to help contribute that they need to also share the understanding with other people. So I'm building my audience in a way to not just receive, but to also be proactive in sharing the truth. Because we need the truth to not just be presented as a way that is just facts alone. We need to have a narrative behind them. We need to know that facts and truth, they also have a backstory. There's a story behind each of it. And it has to be as competitive as the lie. It has to combat the lie and debunk, not only by fact-checking, but also by having a story to tell with a taste and humor that is relatable to it. And that is the thing that we have to focus right now, because we know that truth is not enough. As my beloved friend had said also about this, that it's just not enough that we give out the truth to people without any given basis behind it. Because if they're just gonna receive it on the go, then they won't be able to find a way to relate to it.
Right, right. Thanks, Sir Pio. At being in relation niya, dun sa sinabi niya, I'm sure tayo guys, at syempre si Sir Pio, no, medyo makikita mo kami, Sir Gab, dyan sa ASEAN Media Literacy Program. Kasi nga,
See
di
you,
ba?
Sir Gab.
Di ba? Oo, medyo network building tayo dito sa Schoolmates. Kailangan engage tayong lahat. Kaya naman, dahil nga sinabi niyo rin, Sir Gab, na we have to be part of the solution, no? Or kumbaga, that the solution starts with us. Kung babibigyan kayo ng pagkakataon, no, ano ba ang inyong masasuggest na aksyon na dapat gawin ng ating gobyerno para matigil itong pagpapalaganap ng misguiding, misleading, whatever you call it, kind of news? So simulan muna natin kay Sir Gab.
Okay. Sige, it's a very healthy question, no? Because it's also very rich at the same time. I think a lot of people get confused as to who should be the primary actors and stakeholders in this conversation. Coming from the government, I believe na sana ang politicians mismo, hindi sila mag-a-announce ng mga fake news. For example, at the time of COVID-19, we have seen a lot of politicians who do not fact checks and claim that this is a cure to COVID, even if it was already debunked by the World Health Organization. So we'll start from there. Siguro as tayo, kung gusto natin maging change agents for our communities, let us champion truthful information only. And before tayo mag-influence ng ating mga communities, mga respective influences natin, sana i-fact check natin yung information natin by ourselves mismo. That way, we can be change agents in our community because we're actually fact-checking ourselves and we're championing the change that we would like to see in our respective areas. More than that, I also believe that the government should actually incentivize discussions between, NGO, media stakeholders, and even protect the safety of our press. I'm not saying that there is a difficult scenario right now. What I'm saying is that we have to incentivize investigative journalism, for example, or critical thinking, at least for the Department of Education, for example. We have to integrate media and information literacy curriculum. Kasi as a matter of fact, we're not radically implementing it. Right. And we have to make sure that critical thinking starts from the very beginning of, let's say, we introduce it at the primary level, integrate it radically in the secondary level, and make sure that the Department of Education and CHED have measures in place to actually check whether it is actually effective.
Agree.
We're doing the fact-checking literacy programs, and kapag naging member ka na ng society, you're adult already, you can unlock opportunities for yourselves. You're already ICT literate, you're media and information literate individual already. There's a lot of proactive measures the government can do, and I think it starts with championing fact-checking and media and information literacy within yourself first.
Right.
Thanks, Sir Gab. So, syempre, Sir Pio, bilang educator, no, at content creator, ano naman yung inyong masasuggest from the line rin naman ninyong mga content creators?
Yes, I think for us content creators, we have to also remind ourselves and also the people that we surround by. We can't just tell people to do their own research in a way, because we know that the majority of us maybe cannot spare the time to pay attention to things we follow. It's a very lengthy process, and in a way, there's a lot of people involved for that. So, because from the base level, we know that people will use the internet to research the issue, but many of them will also simply go with whatever biased opinion they have that is in front of them, and they will confirm it even more. And so, what I would suggest is for us to also solve it from within our friends, within our own families. We need to also remind them that maybe there are some habits that need to be changed. Maybe there are some biases that we need to kind of review all over again. My audience members, we also need to know that we are a contributor to society when we spread information. Because we know that technology just isn't the only factor, even if it is among the most highlighted, because there is a real growing threat of distrust towards the academe, towards educational institutions and scientific institutions. And it's very scary that that is also happening, because of people who have given out information, but it's on a non-factual basis. So from that, we have the bottom-up structure to actually engage with people in their own micro-communities. So we may have people in government, we may have NGOs and student movements and creator groups, which I'm a part of, which I'm gladly and delightfully part of, to strengthen it. But we have to find the common ground. So I would say that there is a lack of active steps by currently in our society right now. But to help encourage it and address it is different because we are already starting. We are already the pioneers in terms of looking at that the news can also be said and propagated in this way. It's at all levels concerned. It's not just for those who are willing to only find out about it, but also those who have not heard about it.
Right.
It's everyone who is part of this endeavor.
Exactly po, no, Sir Pio. Kung isipin natin, Trisha and Gab, para siyang virus eh. Para siyang pandemic. It's just that isa siyang infodemic. Kasi nga, fake news siya, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. So, personally po, Sir Gab and Sir Pio, ano po kaya yung mga punishments na pwedeng i-impose on those who are caught spreading fake news? Sir Gab.
Okay. Sige, very loaded question, no? Kasi marami siyang sangay na pwedeng puntahan. I would say we strengthen the way we penalize those people who actually make civil offenses. So similar to civil liability, no? We actually can make sure not only on proven and with a lot of severe implications, we can actually impose civil liability against individuals who create social or impede public fear because of them actually spreading fake news. For example, I would just want to say na fake news is currently being seen as a principal problem only. It affects you saw it. But in other countries and in several countries, fake news is actually lethal. You know, a certain province in Iran, for example, a lot of them died thinking that bootleg alcohol is going to cure COVID. But at that particular time frame, a lot of them, fewer of them, actually died because of COVID. So that time, in terms of comparison, mas lethal pa yung fake news compared to COVID-19. So this is actually a practical manifestation that it's not only a principled harm, it's actually a practical harm to consume fake news. And that's when you really have to extend this to civil liability to certain kinds of, parang it's not just as easy as like people will launch information online and I can go scot-free because, it's just a mistake. It's just a random tirade. You have to really make sure na we have to put our fences already by making sure that the fences are already there. We're building it slowly.
Right.
Thank you, Sir. Sir Pio, kayo naman po. Ano po kaya yung mga punishments na pwedeng i-impose natin sa mga nagkakalat ng fake news?
True. I think with censorship and I think with also figuring out how we can learn how to make social media in a way respectable in the way we find it. I think in our own groups, we need to also figure out, in our smaller groups rather, to figure out how should we design systems that are able to tell the story more. And so in that way, we could also help figure out who are the main proponents that actually spread harmful information. Because it's not enough that we just see it after it happens. We have to already learn how to have preventive measures for not just for the elites, but not just for people who have the privilege of doing the fact-checking, but also for people who are who know or who actually know that the information is flawed and it is wrong and it is constructed in a way to give out propaganda, to give out conspiracy theories, and we need to, in a way, have that what I call proactive measure, even on all social media platforms, to make sure that it is already hindered, it is suppressed before it actually gets out and becomes something that people could already internalize and realize. Because once fake news is out, it's the sole reason of why we are not able to convince them back. And so we have to be able to make sure that when when the truth that we propagate is constructed, we make sure that even within the small groups, we are able to outright report, we are able to outright help review what these truths are, what these facts are. And from that event and from that situation, we are able to already of it being spread to even more people.
Right. Sir Pio, Meron lang akong follow-up question, no? Siyempre, since you are a content creator and you are held, specifically at this time frame, at a pedestal, do you believe na parang this accreditation or kumbaga pag-take down ng inyong mga channels, which we know na you guys work so hard for, especially having a wide follower base, a wide listening base, do you think this accreditation of a certain of a certain social media personality is enough to curb out at least or be a tangible type of penalty? Do you think na that's enough or should there be more? Just being more on the practical side of the question.
I think it is enough, but then in the long run it wouldn't, because it doesn't give out the idea that information will be solidified for everyone to know. Because I think for the accreditation, we have to still have that consistently sustained. And we need people to know about it, because it's not enough that, because we know that truth costs data. And we know that for leaving this, when we leave that unchecked, we might not be able to go back towards that. And we might not be able to find, in a way, we may not be able to get out of the personalization that we already have in these platforms. And yeah, as a content creator, I agree that is enough, but then what happens after the fact? What are the afterthoughts that come after that? Because there needs to be an existence of courage and eagerness to know that it possibly won't be sustained.
Yeah.
So, schoolmates, guys, naiintindihan natin, no, base sa ating diskusyon na marami pa tayong dapat gawin at
Right.
pagtulungan
Yes.
para ma-eradicate ang fake news. Gusto ko yung sinabi ni Sir Gab kanina na yung simpleng pag-fact check sa ating LGUs, napakalaking contribution na sa ating communities.
Right.
Gusto ko rin yung sinabi ni Sir Pio na we have to be relatable.
Right.
'Di ba? Para ma-persuade natin yung mga
Yes.
tao dun sa cause natin, sa gusto nating i-advocate. Parang hindi sapat yung pag-fact check. Kailangan makarelate yung mga tao para maniwala sila sa ating advokasya.
Right.
So, Sir Pio, Sir Gab, panghuli na lamang po, ano yung gusto nyong ibigay na mensahe sa ating mga manonood, especially sa ating pong mga kabataan, ang ating mga pag-asa ng bayan? Unahin natin si Sir Pio.
Yes. What I want to give out about in relation to disinformation, in relation to this whole phenomenon that has affected our lives, and it may continue to affect us for as long as it could exist. It needs to start from us. We can't fully rely to, like, let's say, make social media free with their data plans. We can't rely fully on external measures that may be ineffective for many social groups, right? We need to also, in fact, realize that these habits that surround fake news, these habits that surround being misinformed, having disinformation, the existence on a larger scale of malinformation, they're all coming from the micro scale of people who propagate certain information that may not be even true, that may not be even in a way constructed that is helpful or that is healthy for people to know. And so we need to know when it's being aggressive. We need to know when it has a certain humor to it. We also need to know what taste are we giving out, because words matter and words have power. And so as a content creator, I always stand by that, and I always try to do my best of due diligence to make sure that whatever I talk about, especially off cam, that it is practiced and there's a certain integrity to it. Let's not forget that it's everyone involved and it's you involved.
And syempre,
Si Sir
Sir
Gab.
Gab, ano naman ang inyong final message din syempre sa ating mga schoolmates?
Okay. So, first and foremost, again, thank you for this opportunity. And sa ating mga schoolmates, I would like to encourage you guys to triangulate information as much as possible. You guys have the resources at your disposal to check information. I know that sometimes you don't have the time to do that, but if you have the resources, you have the capabilities, then do so. And also, I would like to actually encourage you to even take your step to the next level by more than advocating for change in your communities, sign up for volunteering programs, try to participate in as many digital trainings as possible, expose yourself to information, and then educate without necessarily trying to castigate anyone within your community. It's not through canceling, it's not through calling people out and saying that they are less educated than you, that you can actually achieve your goals. At the end of the day, participate in the community positively, be responsible with your actions, and sign up to as many educational opportunities as possible.
Right. Thanks so much, Sir Gab. No? Ayan. So, maraming salamat kay Sir Pio and kay Sir Gab. Pero syempre tayo na mga nasa focus group discussion ngayon. But guys, oo nga pala sa mga schoolmates natin na nanonood dyan, kung gusto nyo, join na rin kayo sa Break the Fake Movement. And of course, lalo-lalo na makisama kayo sa aming diskusyon at mag-comment kayo sa ating comment section down below kung paano nyo nga ba ini-exercise yung pag-break the fake news, diba? Ayan. So, guys, take away muna tayo dahil focus group discussion after every discussion. Gina, ano yung mo, 3 highlights mo from this discussion?
Actually, ako, naglista na ako.
Yarn!
Yes. So, gusto ko yung nabanggit ni Sir Gab kanina na dapat may integration ng media literacy into the curriculum. Especially, kasi this was actually being raised before in a budget hearing ng Office of the Press Secretary nung time pa ni former Secretary Angeles, di ba? Congressman Lagman questioned kung ano nga ba yung action or your call to action, yung plans in order to combat misinformation and disinformation. Kasi other countries have been practicing integrating media literacy in their curriculum.
Right.
And maybe it's time for us also to do that to our country as well in the Philippine setting, right? Kasi this would be very helpful. Also, yung in terms of local setting naman tayo sa mga LGU, diba? Tama rin naman na hindi lang tayo dapat nakikinig. Hindi lang dapat tayo followers per se. Dapat tayo maging isang good follower na dapat nakikinig tayo and also hindi lang tayo feed dun sa information.
Right.
We also have to check if yung na-absorb ba nating information ay tama. Para kung ibibigay man natin yun, kung i-disseminate man natin yun sa iba, tama rin yung matatanggap nila, tama din yung ma-absorb nila. And also, it was actually being proposed naman na in terms of sa ating to recognize the efforts of our government. It was actually the Office of the Press Secretary was also willing to work with the Congress in order to push a legislation na ma-integrate ngayon media literacy sa ating education system by using the whole of government approach.
Right.
Okay, syempre, no? Ako daw muna bago si Gab. Okay, so, key highlights, guys, no? Ang una kong nagustuhan is the fact that we do recognize na Philippines is a shame country. It's a shame-fueled country. Whenever you speak online, it's all about connecting to your image, di ba? So, parang, when you say accountability, guys, let's not fear accountability. Let's value transparency. Na kung nagkamali tayo nang nasabi natin, okay, let's take it. Guys, I'm sorry, mali pala itong sinabi ko because you are already becoming that missing link to really parang breaking the chain, so per se, di ba, ng fake news. So, parang doing that accountability check also and identifying who the proper action holders are. That helps us understand sino nga ba or ano yung role natin dito. Kasi tayo parang nakikinig lang tayo para magsalita ulit. Pero hindi tayo nakikinig para maintindihan yung sinasabi ng kausap natin. Hence, syempre, nabanggit ni Sir Gab at ni Sir Pio na confirmation bias. So, i-accept natin, we have to change the mindset, change the habit so that we can change our ways. And this goes both ways, no? Hindi importante kung ikaw ay nasa media lamang. Hindi importante na ikaw ay isang opisyal lamang or part ka ng corporate or part ka ng academe. Everyone, regardless of your position, has to take part of it. Kasi buhay ang nakataya kung hindi tama yung impormasyon mong ipapakalat, di ba? So I think this also goes with what Gab as a leader, yes, syempre, a student leader, yes. Para ano yung, for you, ano yung nakita mong key highlights din sa takeaway nila? Kasi ako, I felt strongly with what they really said kanina.
Napakaswerte natin, schoolmates, sa episode na ito dahil hindi natin maitatanggi, sobrang dami nating natutunan kay Sir
Tayo
Gab
rin mismo,
at kay
no?
Sir
Natuto
Pio.
tayo
Oo.
doon. Oo.
At nakakamiss yung magkaroon ng eksperto sa programa
Correct.
na nandito mismo.
Oo.
So maraming salamat, Sir Gab and Sir Pio. Pero schoolmates, ngayong gabi, naiintindihan natin na napaka-importante ng media, ng katotohanan at ng transparency sa demokrasya at sa nation building, no? Hindi natin ma-eradicate totally ang fake news. Napakalayo pa ng ating lalakbayin. Marami pa tayong dapat gawin pero marami tayong magagawang paraan para makontrol ang pagkalat nito. No? Ang hamon sa bawat Pilipino ay maging kritikal sa mga nababasa at nakikita natin online. Sa mga nababasa at nakikita natin mula sa ating mga leader, sa ating mga komunidad, mula sa nasyonal hanggang sa ating mga barangay.
Right.
'Di ba? So siguro, ang hamon din sa ating pamahalaan tulad ng nabanggit ng ating mga guests, siguro it's time para i-integrate na talaga
Yes,
ang
exactly.
media literacy, ang responsible journalism sa ating curriculum. Dapat pag-aralan na ito at i-educate din natin mismo yung ating mga kapamilya, yung ating mga kaibigan, yung ating mga communities, no? The challenge for all of us sa mga media practitioners, sa mga scholars, sa ating leaders, sa ating organizations, private, public, is to find ways, no, to promote media literacy at maging ang responsible journalism.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Let's shift the power imbalance, no? Let's create that power within us to really determine what is true and what is not. Kasi syempre, sabi ni Sir Pio, quote lang natin, no? Dahil nga, citing sources, no? Your words have power. You have power. Kaya naman, muli, maraming salamat po sa pagsama ninyo sa aming programa, Sir Pio, and syempre, Sir Gab, no? At syempre sa ating mga schoolmates, sa bawat usapin, sa bawat issue, may boses tayong mga kabataan.
Sumali, makinig at makiisa dahil opinion nyo'y mahalaga.
Kaya naman sabay-sabay nating isigaw sa buong mundo. Schoolmates!
May pakialam ka!